Hollywood's golden age was a special time. It wasn't just about making movies. It was about creating myths. From the 1920s to the 1960s, the big studios were like kingdoms. They had the power to make anyone a star. But this power came with a price. Fame was everything. It was the ultimate prize in a town built on dreams. Actors/actresses were not just performers. They were products. They were carefully packaged and sold to a hungry public. They controlled their lives, their names, their stories. To get to the top, you had to be willing to play the game. You had to want it more than anything. The dream of stardom was intoxicating. It promised a life of glamour, wealth, and adoration. Imagine being a regular person one day and a screen god or goddess the next. This was the promise of Hollywood, but the reality was much more complicated. The competition was fierce. Thousands of hopefuls flocked to Los Angeles. To stand out, you needed more than just talent and good looks. The studio system was the engine of Golden Age Hollywood. 5 major studios, known as the Big Five, dominated the industry. MGM Paramount, Warner Brothers 20th Century Fox, RKO Pictures. They were vertically integrated, meaning they controlled every aspect of filmmaking. Production facilities, distribution networks, movie theaters. This gave them unprecedented power. They could decide which movies got made, who starred in them, where they were shown. The studios were factories, and their most valuable products were the stars themselves. They manufactured fame on an industrial scale. Actors who signed with a major studio were bound by long-term contracts. These contracts were notoriously strict. They typically lasted for 7 years and gave the studio complete control. The studios could dictate their roles, loan them out to other studios, change their names. Lucille Lesueur became Joan Crawford. Archibald Leach became Cary Grant. The studios molded their stars into specific archetypes. Girl next door tough guy, exotic vamp. They created backstories, sometimes entirely fictional, to make their stars more appealing. In the world of Golden Age Hollywood, fame was not just a byproduct of talent. It was a goal to be pursued with relentless determination. Some stars were lucky, discovered by chance at a soda fountain or in a local play. But for many others, the path to stardom was a calculated campaign. They understood that to make it, they had to be strategic. They had to be willing to sacrifice parts of themselves to play a role both on and off the screen. They had to create a narrative, a brand that would capture the public's imagination. This was not a world for the faint of heart. It was a battlefield of ambition, where only the most driven survived. We are going to count down 3 stars who embodied this ruthless pursuit of fame. These are not stories of overnight success. They are stories of grit, manipulation, and sometimes shocking behavior. These actors knew that talent alone was not enough. You had to hustle. You had to create your own opportunities. You had to make sure that the gossip columnists always had something to write about. Their stories pull back the curtain on the dream factory and reveal the machinery that powered it. They show us that the glittering images on the silver screen were often built on fierce and desperate ambition. Our countdown begins with actors who understood the game better than anyone. They were masters of self-promotion, architects of their own legends. Our countdown begins with a woman who was the living embodiment of Hollywood ambition, Joan Crawford. Born Lucille Fay Lesueur in San Antonio, Texas, her early life was one of poverty and struggle. She knew from a young age that she wanted more. She wanted to escape her past and reinvent herself completely. Hollywood was her ticket out. She arrived in 1925 after being discovered as a dancer, but dancing would not be enough. She needed to transform herself into a movie star. This transformation became her life's work, pursued with a single-minded focus that was awe-inspiring and a little terrifying. Joan's first step was to change her name. MGM held a magazine contest. Joan Crawford was the winner, but Joan did more than change her name. She changed everything. She studied how other stars walked, talked, dressed. She worked to lose her Texas accent and cultivate a mid-Atlantic speaking voice. Hours in front of the mirror, perfecting her look. Being a star was a 24/7 job and she was never off. Joan Crawford's drive was legendary, and it manifested in every aspect of her career. She found early success as a flapper in the 1920s, but tastes were changing. She couldn't be the dancing party girl forever, so she reinvented herself. She took on more dramatic roles, playing hardworking shopgirls who triumphed over adversity. Those roles resonated with Depression-era audiences and solidified her status as a major star. Her ability to adapt was crucial to her longevity. While other silent film stars faded away, Joan successfully transitioned to talkies and continued to evolve her persona for decades. She was always one step ahead, anticipating what the public wanted next. Her personal life was also a tool for her career. Her marriages were highly publicized events. Her first marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was a strategic move. He was Hollywood royalty. By marrying him, Joan gained access to exclusive social circles. She used that access to network and learn from the elite. She transformed herself from a chorus girl into a sophisticated hostess. She understood that who you knew mattered as much as what you could do on screen. Her relationships were always, in part, a career calculation. Even when her career hit a low point, Joan found a way to turn it into a victory. Coming in at number 2 is the swashbuckling adventurer, Errol Flynn. If Joan Crawford built her fame through meticulous control, Errol Flynn built his by embracing chaos. He was the handsome, reckless hero on screen, and he made sure his off-screen life was just as exciting. Born in Tasmania, Australia, Flynn had a restless spirit from a young age. He worked a series of odd jobs, a gold prospector, a sheep castrator, a fisherman, before finding his way to acting. When he arrived in Hollywood in the mid-1930s, he was an unknown, but he had the looks, the charm, and a willingness to create his own legend. Flynn's big break came when he was cast as the lead in Captain Blood in 1935. He was a last-minute replacement for the original star, Robert Donat. Flynn seized the opportunity. He was a natural athlete and performed many of his own stunts, adding a level of authenticity and excitement to his roles that audiences loved. He became the definitive action hero of his generation, starring in the adventures of Robin Hood the Seahawk. But Flynn understood that his on-screen persona needed to be backed up by an equally adventurous off-screen life. Errol Flynn's commitment to his reckless persona was total. He lived the part every single day. Friends and colleagues often said you never knew if his stories were true. He claimed to have been a slave trader in New Guinea. He claimed to have fought in revolutions. It didn't matter if the stories were real. What mattered was that they were exciting. They added to the mystique of Errol Flynn, the real-life adventurer. He was selling a fantasy. He knew his own life had to be the most fantastic story of all. This constant performance took a toll. It was the price he paid for his unique brand of fame. His on-set behavior was just as unpredictable. He was a notorious prankster, constantly playing practical jokes on co-stars and directors. While filming The Adventures of Robin Hood, he allegedly placed a dead snake in Olivia de Havilland's dressing room. These antics were disruptive, but they also added to his roguish charm. The crew might have been frustrated, but the stories only added to his legend. He was the bad boy you couldn't help but love. An escape from the ordinary, on screen and off. Flynn's lifestyle, however, was not sustainable. Years of hard drinking and drug use began to catch up with him. At the top of our list, at number 1, is the ultimate sweater girl, Lana Turner. Her story is perhaps the most dramatic and tragic example of a life lived in the glare of the Hollywood spotlight. Born Julia Jean Turner in a small mining town in Idaho, she had a difficult childhood marked by her father's murder. She moved to California with her mother, and according to Hollywood legend, she was discovered at the age of 16 while sipping a Coke at a soda fountain near Hollywood High School. The story itself is a perfect piece of Hollywood mythology, a Cinderella tale that instantly captured the public's imagination. Lana Turner's fame was built almost entirely on her stunning beauty and sex appeal. Her first role was a small but memorable part in the 1937 film They Won't Forget. She wore a tight sweater that accentuated her figure, and she was an overnight sensation. The press dubbed her the Sweater Girl, a nickname that would follow her for the rest of her career. Lana and the studio, MGM, leaned into this image. She became the ultimate pinup girl, a symbol of glamour and desire. Her personal life, which was a whirlwind of romances and marriages, became as much a part of her public persona as her films. Lana's pursuit of fame was intertwined with a desperate search for love and stability. She was married 8 times to 7 different men. Each marriage and each divorce was front-page news. She had high-profile affairs with some of the most famous men in Hollywood: Tyrone Power, Frank Sinatra. Her love life was a real-life soap opera that the public followed with rapt attention. It's unclear how much of this was a calculated move to stay in the headlines, and how much was a genuine and often tragic quest for happiness. What is clear is that her turbulent personal life kept her famous, even when her films were not successful.